How to overcome fear and anxiety. I'm going to be diving into these topics and show you step by step what they are and how to overcome them on this podcast. So thank you for joining me today. My name is Lewis Huckstep. I'm a coach. I help people find purpose, overcome limitations, do inner work, and create a life that you love. So if this sounds interesting to you, if you struggle with fear, with anxiety, with not taking action, getting in your own head, this is going to be a really impactful podcast. So stick around and enjoy. So I'm going to kick it off with this quote that I love. Past hurt creates future fear. Let me say that again. Past hurt creates future fear. So I talk about the ego a lot in my content. So the ego, your ego, is the identity of who you view yourself to be and how you view the world and your reality. So the world you live in, the reality that you live in, your own little world you live in, is your ego. Now, some people think that ego is a bad thing. No, it's not. It's just the identity of who you view yourself to be. But just like a program, like a computer or a phone or some form of a program, you can have viruses on that computer or that program. Those are limiting beliefs. So those are the limitations of the ego, which I'll come back to. But the ego has two traits. Two traits of the ego. Number one, it avoids pain. This is essentially the problem that we're talking about today. And number two, it proves itself right. It reinforces the beliefs that you have. This is where limiting beliefs are so challenging. If you believe you're not enough, you're going to make that true. If you believe that you're a piece of shit, you're going to make that true. If you believe you're not worthy of love, you don't deserve relationships, that all men are assholes, and that there's no good ones left anymore, that you're not good with money, you will make those beliefs true. Those create some of the self-sabotaging patterns that play out. So how does this tie into fear and anxiety? You may be wondering. So there's a couple of things. Firstly, I want to talk about natural fear, natural anxiety, because we are human beings. We have survival instincts inside of us, which allow us to survive, evolve for millions of years. It's our fight or flight response. You will always have that a part of you. So I always use this stupid example. Say a tiger walked into my room right now. How do you think I'm going to feel? Do you think I'm going to be so stress-free and relaxed and zen? Fuck no. I'm going to be stressed. I'm going to have fear or anxiety to survive. I'm going to go fight, flight, or flee, or freeze, depending on my survival response. That's very natural. It's very normal, and you don't get rid of it. Some people think feeling fear or feeling anxiety is a bad thing. It's not. It's part of being a human being. I'll make a more realistic example. Say you're driving a car and someone is about to hit you. They've taken the wrong turn and someone's driving head on towards you. You think you want to be really like slow and chilled and relaxed in that moment. Oh, what's this person doing? Maybe I should get out of the way. Nah, you want to get triggered into anxiety and fear and do something about it. So it's a natural response. It's not a bad thing. Some people think it's bad. So that is normal. Let's say natural fear, natural anxiety. It's normal. It's not a bad thing. The unhealthy one, which is what most people struggle with, is what I'm talking about today. So if you're struggling with fear and anxiety, there's two major things that are playing out. It is your limiting beliefs and trauma. They're the main two things that are playing out because past hurt creates future fear. I'm going to break it down like this. I talk about this in my content all the time as well. There's three pieces of trauma and how it plays out that you want to be aware of. Let's break it down. Number one is trauma itself. Now, my definition of trauma is a moment in time when something was too much or not enough. Let me say that again. It is a moment in time when something was too much or not enough. And it will be a specific word. I teach this in other content, so I'm not going to go too deep on this one. But it may be criticism, abuse, rejection, abandonment, overwhelm, anger, frustration, lying, criticism. The list goes on, right? So first thing to understand is trauma. Second is coping strategies. This is what fear or anxiety is. It's a coping strategy. Now, a coping strategy has two sides to the coin, okay? There's two sides to a coping strategy. Number one is I'll go to the third point. Third point is a trigger. A trigger reminds you of the trauma and activates a coping strategy. A coping strategy could be dissociation, can be anxiety, can be depression, can be people pleasing, can be eating food, smoking a cigarette, overworking, there's so many coping strategies that can play out. We all have our own. So you got trauma, coping strategies, and triggers. Remember, a trigger reminds you of the trauma and activates the coping strategy. So one side to trauma is what I just said. When you see or experience something that reminds you of something you haven't healed through, a trauma or a limiting belief, it will activate a coping strategy. In this case, it may be fear or anxiety. You get anxious. Let's use an example. Say you got abandoned before, and then you experience something and your coping strategy, and a coping strategy is what you do to overcome the trauma. It's what you do to survive. It's what you do to get through the pain. So say you got abandoned or rejected, and your coping strategy is anxiety. And say you haven't healed that wound yet. Every single time you experience abandonment or you feel like you get abandoned, you will get anxious. You will get triggered and activated into anxiety. So that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is what the quote means at the start of this podcast. Past hurt creates future fear. So there's two sides of the coin. The first side is you get triggered into it. The second side is that you try to prevent yourself from experiencing the trauma again. I'm going to stick with rejection just to keep it simple because most people have experienced rejection and have a wound around that. So rejection, coping strategy is anxiety. So when you perceive or experience rejection, you get triggered into anxiety. Now, the other side to that coin is you try to prevent yourself from experiencing that trauma again. So you don't want to get rejected again. So what do? You will sabotage yourself and stop yourself from doing things where you could get rejected. What could that look like? It could look like not posting content on social media because people will reject you, people will judge you, people will criticize you. It may be not having a tough conversation with your partner. It may be not asking someone out because you don't want to get rejected. There's many things, being a people pleaser. You're doing things to stop yourself from experiencing the rejection again. So if I was to summarize everything I'm talking about right now, your fear and your anxiety, outside of the natural part, okay, I just want to separate. There is natural fight or flight. You're not going to get rid of that. That is hardwired into us. It's part of our reptilian brain. I haven't really spoken too much about this, but there's the reptilian, mammalian, and neocortex. There's three brains that we have. Most people have fucking zero brains, right? But we have three brains that we have: reptilian, the mammalian, and the neocortex. So your reptilian brain is your survival instincts, okay? Fight or flight, we want to survive, right? So you will not get rid of that. You don't want to get rid of it. You want it so you can survive. So when a car's about to hit you, you want to activate into whatever you're going to get activated into so you can survive. So outside of real danger, real situations where you want to be triggered into whatever survival instincts you get triggered into, outside of that, whenever you have anxiety or fear, it's a coping strategy. You are either getting triggered into it or you're protecting yourself from experiencing it again. I hope that landed. I know I took a while to get to the punchline of this podcast, but I hope that lesson landed for you. All you're doing, if you experience anxiety or fear outside of natural fight or flight, if you're experiencing that, all that is happening is you've been triggered into it from past trauma or your limiting beliefs, or you're trying to protect yourself from not experiencing it again. That's it. So that's the punchline of it. But now the question is, well, what do we do about it? Okay, that makes sense. Hopefully that made sense. Now, what do we do about it? Great question. Two things. I talk about maintenance and progress tools. This is a really good conversation. I love talking about this. So maintenance tools is what do you do in the moment? So right now, you get anxious. Great. What do you do about it? For me, maintenance tools, two of my favorite ones, is regulating your nervous system through breath work. And you can also do a diaphragm reset where you push your fingers into your diaphragm and you breathe into it. Why don't we do a big breath right now, okay? So in a moment, I'm going to ask you, breathe through your nose, breathe into your diaphragm, which is just like an inch or two below your sternum. Your sternum is the bony part of your chest. So go a centimeter or two below your sternum. If you've got fake nails on, it's a little bit harder, but still do it. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to breathe through your nose really slowly. I want you to breathe into your diaphragm and expand that part of your body, your belly, your diaphragm. And when you breathe out slowly, I want you to push your fingers into your diaphragm. Obviously, go as hard as you can. And obviously, do your own judgment and don't hurt yourself, okay? So let's breathe in nice and slow through your nose for 5 seconds. Breathe in right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, I want you to breathe out really slow. And when you breathe out slow, push your fingers into your diaphragm. Breathe out now. Push it in. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I want you to do that one more time if you want to. You can pause the podcast, do it if you want to. But you'll notice how relaxing you're going to feel. It's resetting your nervous system. It is getting you through the trigger, because progress tools is essentially how you go and heal the trauma or remove the limiting beliefs that are getting triggered. You probably can't do that in the moment all the time. Like if you're at work, you're on a meeting, you're driving your car, and something triggers you into anxiety or fear, you probably don't have time to, let's go process this, let's go integrate this, let's go work through this. Like you've got to get on with your day, right? You got the show must go on. So that's why maintenance tools helps you maintain yourself in the moment. So resetting your nervous system is my favorite one. And the second one I love is reframing, because your words create your reality. Whatever you create or whatever you say, whatever meaning you create about the situation, you feel that. The words you say will create your world, your reality, your beliefs, and your feelings and the experience you have of life. If you're going through, say you've got a tough conversation to have and you're telling yourself the story of, this is going to be shit, she's going to blow up at me, she's going to leave me, I'm not worthy, all this stuff, that's what you create. So reframing that situation to, this has given me an awesome opportunity to grow. I'm growing right now. I'm healing right now. I'm stepping into courage right now. So reframing is a really, really beautiful tool. It's just catching your thoughts and then reframing it into a positive outlook, okay? So those are my two favorite maintenance tools. I do have one more, but I won't talk about it today. So they're my two favorite. Regulate your nervous system, reset your diaphragm or your nervous system. Number 2, reframe the situation, okay? So that's maintenance tools. The other part is progress tools. Now, this is where I think it's more important, because this is actually trigger warning for all my breathwork people out there. Now, I'm a breathwork facilitator. I'm a huge fan of breathwork in the right time, in the right place. In terms of maintenance, I think breathwork is probably my favorite. I just told you that, and the reframing, they're my favorites. But this is the challenge. Say you have an unresolved trauma or a limiting belief that causes you to get triggered into anxiety, fear, overwhelm, self-sabotaging patterns, all the above, and we all have ours. Say you get triggered, and then you do the maintenance tools and you breathe and you regulate and you ground yourself and you feel good. If you don't ever go and address what got triggered in you, because I always say nothing triggers you, it reveals what's inside of you. If you don't actually go do the integration work and integrate the wound, remove the limiting belief, heal and grow, guess what? That same fucking thing will get triggered again. And this is, and again, I give all the love in the world to my breathwork people and my plant medicine people, because I see those guys do it the most, is they'll go to a breathwork session, they'll have this huge release, fantastic, that's great. Good to clear out the nervous system, good to clear out the channel, fantastic, great. But then, if they never go integrate and heal the wounds that keep getting triggered, then you're off to do another breathwork again. And you just keep going through the fucking breathwork or plant medicine journeys over and over and over again. Now, don't get me wrong, breathwork and plant medicine do have their place and can be a healing tool at the right time, at the right place. But it can certainly be a disassociation tool, which a lot of people use. So, 2 tools: maintenance, breathe, ground your nervous system, reframe the situation, and then progress tools is actually processes or modalities or tools to heal the trauma, the wounds, and heal or dissolve the limiting beliefs. Now, I'm not going to go super deep in that, because that's real deep work. That's honestly my paid services. I'd love to show you guys how, if you want to do that with me. But go find a coach, a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, whoever you want to work with, a healer, and do the inner work. Heal those parts of you. Remove those limitations, those viruses, those bad codings. Because if you don't, guess what? You're going to get triggered again. And you're going to have to go fucking ground yourself again and regulate yourself again. And you're going to be constantly living in this fear and self-sabotaging patterns, which sabotage your relationships, your business, your finances, your health, whatever's important to you. Because you don't see things the way they are. You see things the way you are. Your whole life right now is a manifestation or a projection of you. If you are not getting the results that you want in life, it is on you. Trigger warning. Sorry to say that to you, but that's the truth. Now, you might be missing skills. That's the last piece I haven't really spoken about today, of how to build a business, how to communicate, all those things. You can learn that. Listen to a podcast, read a book. It's not that challenging. But if you have limitations and triggers and unhealed stuff, they're going to continue to play out in your life. All the coping strategies, all the disassociation stuff, all the fear, all the overwhelm, that will keep playing out until you actually address it. The treasure is buried where you're not looking. So please, I encourage you to lean into yourself and do the inner work. I hope this made sense. I'm going to summarize this whole podcast. Fear and anxiety is past hurt creating future fear. There is natural fight or flight and anxiety. That is normal. You'll never get rid of that, and you don't want to get rid of that. That's part of being a human, and that allows us to survive and evolve. It's a good thing. So outside of fight or flight, real natural fight or flight, whenever you get triggered and you have anxiety or you have fear, it is a coping mechanism. It is a coping strategy that has been triggered because you've perceived something that has triggered trauma in you, or you are protecting yourself from experiencing it again. There's two tools. There's maintenance tools that helps you in the moment to regulate your nervous system and get through the situation. And then there's progress tools. That's when we actually look within, find the limiting belief, find the trauma, and integrate and heal that so you stop getting triggered into it moving forward. I hope you got value from this. Please leave your thoughts and comments down below. Please share this with a friend as well to help me help more people. And if you're interested in working with me, I've got a couple of options. I've got a book. I've got a free 7-day trial of my school community down below where you get a one-on-one call with me when you join. And I'm actually starting to run events in 2025, depending on what time you're listening to this podcast. So all the links are down below. Check it out. I appreciate you. Have a beautiful day. Love to hear your thoughts, and I'll speak to you soon. See ya.